Evan sat alone in the small cockpit of his transport shuttle, staring at the blinking console. The station behind him hummed quietly, almost peacefully, but the message that had arrived earlier still burned in his mind. It was faint, broken by static, but he had heard the words clearly. "Please, someone, save her. I don't want to lose her." The voice was small, young, trembling, desperate. He could feel the fear behind it, like a sharp needle pressing into his chest. The station's alarms and lights meant nothing to him now. All he could think about was the girl who needed help. The colony was hundreds of light years away, on a planet that most humans called unreachable. Other medics had refused the call. Too dangerous. Too strange. Too alien. But Evan did not think like that. Humans had always been known to take risks, sometimes foolishly, but he knew that even one life saved could matter more than 100 lives ignored. He gripped the edge of his chair and whispered, "I'll get her. I promise." The transport was small, barely enough room for his medkit and a few supplies, but it had survived more storms than most larger ships. Evan had patched it himself more times than he could count. He ran his hands over the controls, checking systems one by one. Fuel levels, oxygen, engine, navigation, communication. All normal. Yet normal felt strange now. He was heading into unknown space, carrying the hope of a family he had never met, to save a life he had never seen. He thought of Leora. That was the girl's name given in the last message. Something in the sound of it made him pause. Soft, delicate, yet full of life. He imagined her small hands reaching out, her bright eyes wide with fear. Humans had a way of understanding fear in other creatures, even alien ones. He could not explain why he felt it so strongly, but he knew he could not ignore it. Not this time. The shuttle lifted off slowly, leaving the quiet of the station behind. Stars stretched into lines as the faster-than-light engines engaged, and Evan felt the familiar pull of acceleration. Yet excitement and dread mixed in his chest. He had done dangerous missions before, storms on uncharted planets, cargo runs through pirate zones, but this felt different. This was not about money or glory. This was about life, about a fragile thread that could snap at any moment. Hours passed, though in the shuttle they seemed like minutes. Evan reviewed the message again, listening to the static whisper of Leora's voice. Her breathing was uneven. The colony's sensors had barely detected her condition. She was fading fast and every moment counted. He knew humans had done amazing things before. They had healed, built, discovered, and survived where no one else had. This mission was small compared to history, but to this girl it could be everything. He checked the map of the colony, glowing faintly on the screen. Mountains, rivers, strange plants that shimmered under the alien sun. The world was beautiful in a way humans rarely saw outside their own planets. But it was dangerous. Not just because of the terrain but because of the unknowns, the creatures, the atmosphere, the technology they might have. Other medics had refused because they feared the unknown. But Evan thought about human courage. Humans had explored the stars, fought wars, and risked their lives for strangers. This was just another moment in the long story of humanity trying to do what others would not. Evan reached for his medkit. It was packed with everything he could need, both human and alien tools he had studied from reports. Bandages, medicines, instruments, and a few alien devices whose use he had only practiced in simulations. He hoped it would be enough. He hoped he could make a difference. He also hoped that hope alone was not too weak to keep her alive. The shuttle shuddered as it passed through an asteroid field. Small rocks bounced off shields with sparks flying. Evan gritted his teeth, guiding the ship with careful hands. The danger made him feel alive, but it did not distract him. He thought of Leora's voice again, calling silently through the stars. Every star outside the window was a reminder of how far he had to go, and how much he had to risk. Humans did not always succeed, but they did not give up. That was what made them different. That was what made him different. Hours became days in the shuttle, though the faster-than-light travel shortened time in ways strange to the mind. Evan ate little, slept less, but he did not stop. He reviewed the message again, listening to the panic, the fear, the tiny hope hidden under it. He realized that sometimes, the hardest thing was not fighting storms or avoiding enemies. Sometimes, the hardest thing was just caring enough to act when everyone else had turned away. Humans had that in them. He had that in him. Finally, the planet came into view. Green and blue, glowing with the alien light of its sun. The colony's signal strengthened as he descended into the atmosphere. Evan could see the structures now, small domes and spires, surrounded by the strange luminous plants he had studied. He prepared the medkit, checking every instrument. Leora was waiting somewhere inside, and Evan could almost feel her small pulse through the screen, fragile and weak. He knew the cost of failure. He knew that even reaching the planet would not guarantee success. But he also knew something else. Humans did not turn away when life called. Humans risked, tried, and sometimes succeeded against impossible odds. He felt that quiet, stubborn courage in himself now, growing with every heartbeat. No one else would come. It was just him and the life of a small girl who had called out into the stars, hoping someone would hear. The shuttle touched down softly on the colony's landing platform. Evan took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had arrived, but the mission had just begun. Somewhere inside that glowing alien world, Leora was waiting, and the next moments would decide everything. He stood, medkit in hand, ready to step into a world full of unknowns, full of danger but also full of hope. Evan whispered almost to himself, "I'll save you, Leora. I don't care the cost. I'll save you." The words hung in the air as he opened the shuttle door, stepping into the alien light, the first step in a journey where humanity's courage would be tested in ways no human had faced before. Evan stepped off the shuttle, the soft hum of the landing platform fading behind him. The air smelled different, sweet and sharp at the same time, like flowers mixed with metal. He looked around and felt a mix of awe and unease. The colony was alive in a way he had never seen before. Buildings glowed with a soft light, made of materials that shifted colors in the sun. Rivers floated above the ground, twisting and turning in patterns that seemed impossible. Plants shimmered like they had their own energy. It was beautiful but strange. He reminded himself that beauty did not mean safety. A group of aliens approached. They were small, shorter than humans, with thin bodies and glowing markings across their skin. Their faces were soft but serious, eyes wide and cautious. One of them stepped forward, a female, her glow brighter than the others. She spoke quickly in a language he did not know, but a small translator device on his wrist caught the meaning. "You are the human who came. Leora, she waits, but her condition worsens. Can you help?" Evan nodded. His stomach tightened, but he held his voice steady. "I'll do my best. Tell me where she is." The female alien, whom he learned was called Mara, gestured for him to follow. They walked across bridges of light and streets lined with plants that glowed faintly under his feet. Evan tried not to stare too long at everything around him. Curiosity burned in him, but he reminded himself that the girl's life came first. They entered a dome that looked like a giant greenhouse. Inside, the light was warm and soft. In the center of the room lay Leora. She was small, almost like a human child, but her skin had a faint shimmer and her eyes were closed. Machines surrounded her, small devices that pulsed with light, reading her vital signs. Evan knelt beside her bed, checking her pulse, her breathing. It was weak, thinner than any humans could be in a similar condition. He felt a pang in his chest. She was so close to slipping away, and yet he had only just arrived. Mara watched him carefully. "We have tried everything," she said softly. "Our medicines, our devices, nothing works. Only you, humans, you may succeed." Evan swallowed hard. He had dealt with difficult cases before, but nothing like this. The infection in Leora's body was unlike anything he had seen. It moved quickly, attacking systems he didn't fully understand. Her life depended on something beyond normal medicine, beyond normal science. He opened his medkit and pulled out the instruments he had brought. Bandages, diagnostic tools, alien stimulants he had learned to use from simulations. He worked quickly, checking every reading, analyzing her condition. Time passed too fast and he realized that every minute mattered. Even small delays could cost her life. His hands moved steadily, but inside, fear churned. The stakes were higher than anything he had faced. As he worked, the elders of the colony gathered around. They were taller, older, with deeper glows and patterns that moved across their skin like living tattoos. They spoke in low tones, translating through Mara's device. They offered Evan strange items, crystals that hummed with energy, devices that seemed like tiny machines, all in exchange for saving Leora. Evan shook his head. He did not want rewards. He wanted only to save her life. Yet he realized that these items might hold the key to doing so. Humans often succeeded by understanding what others overlooked. Evan studied the readings and the devices. He realized the infection was not natural. It had come from outside the planet, carried perhaps by a meteor or a small virus that traveled through space. It was clever, fast, and resistant. But humans were clever too. He remembered how humans had faced deadly diseases on their own worlds, finding cures from unlikely sources. He focused on the patterns in the data, the small signals in the readings that hinted at a solution. Mara and the elders watched silently, but Evan could feel their hope resting on him. He knew that to save Leora, he might have to travel beyond the colony, to a place humans rarely dared. There was a rare mineral found only on a nearby asteroid that could neutralize the infection. No human had ever been there. Few aliens had tried. The journey was dangerous, filled with unknowns, and yet, it was the only chance. Evan took a deep breath. He had faced storms, pirates, and strange planets before, but this was different. This was about life itself. He turned to Mara. "I'll need to go to the asteroid. I need that mineral. Nothing else will work fast enough." Her eyes widened, and the elders murmured among themselves. "The journey, many never return," one elder said. But Evan only nodded. Humans were different. They did not give up when others turned away. They acted when life demanded it. Packing his medkit again, Evan prepared for the journey. He loaded the shuttle with supplies, double-checking everything. Mara gave him a small device that could track the mineral's energy signature, glowing faintly in his hand. "This will help," she said. "But beware, the asteroid is guarded by creatures, dangerous ones." Evan nodded again. He did not need reassurance. Danger was part of his life. But fear would not stop him now. Leora's life mattered more than his own safety. Before leaving, Evan knelt by Leora once more. He held her small hand gently, feeling the faint warmth. She was fragile, almost slipping into darkness. He whispered softly, "I will come back. I promise. You will be alive." Her chest rose slightly, a tiny sigh as if she somehow understood. That small sign, small as it was, gave him strength. Humans survived because they cared. Humans acted because they could not ignore a life in need. The shuttle lifted off the colony platform, moving into the sky, leaving the glowing city behind. Evan's mind was focused, his hands steady on the controls. The stars stretched into streaks as faster-than-light engines engaged. Ahead lay danger, uncertainty, and a mission that might cost him everything. But he felt something familiar, something humans always carried: hope, courage, and the refusal to abandon a life in need. As the planet grew smaller behind him, Evan thought of Leora, alone and weak, waiting for someone who would not give up. He tightened his grip on the controls and whispered, "Hold on, Leora. I'm coming. Nothing will stop me." And with that, he plunged into the unknown, ready to face the asteroid, the creatures, and whatever cost it would take to save a life that had no right to be ignored. Evan's shuttle moved through the blackness of space, stars streaking past as the faster-than-light engines hummed. Ahead, the asteroid waited, small but dangerous, floating like a lonely rock in the void. He studied the map Mara had given him, checking every detail. The mineral was hidden deep inside, and rumors said it was guarded by creatures no human had faced. Yet there was no time to hesitate. Leora's life depended on him. The journey was not easy. Solar storms lashed at the shuttle, sparks flying across the control panel. Evan's hands moved quickly, adjusting shields, rerouting power, keeping the engine steady. Every second mattered. One wrong move and the shuttle could be shredded, leaving him drifting in space. He clenched his teeth and kept going, focusing on the mission. Humans had always survived by thinking fast, by acting when danger came. He would not fail now. Finally, he reached the asteroid. It loomed large in the viewport, jagged and uneven, shadows stretching across its surface. He slowed the shuttle, scanning for movement. That was when he saw them, creatures that seemed alive and mechanical at the same time. Their bodies shimmered like liquid metal, and their eyes glowed like small suns. They moved in ways that seemed impossible, climbing the jagged rocks, guarding the mineral. Evan's pulse quickened. No human had faced such creatures, and yet he could not turn back. He suited up and prepared the shuttle's cargo bay for landing. The creatures watched, their glowing eyes tracking every movement. Evan forced himself to breathe slowly, steady his hands. Humans were clever, and cleverness could beat strength. He had faced wild animals, pirates, storms, but never beings like these. He studied them, noticing patterns, how they moved, how they reacted. Every observation was a clue. The landing was rough. Rocks scraped the shuttle's hull, but it held. Evan stepped out, medkit and toolkit in hand. The asteroid's surface was uneven, sharp, and glowing faintly under the strange light of a distant star. The creatures did not attack immediately. They watched, circling, calculating. Evan moved carefully, crouching low, using the rocks as cover. Every step was measured. Every breath counted. Humans could survive because they could plan, adapt, and act when others froze. He spotted the mineral, a faint blue crystal, glowing softly, embedded in a jagged rock formation. It pulsed with energy, almost alive. But the creatures were between him and the mineral, blocking the path. Evan studied them again. Their movement was synchronized. They seemed intelligent, as if they understood threats. He needed a plan. He could not fight them head-on. Humans had never relied only on force. They used brains first. Evan found a narrow path along the rocks. It was risky. One wrong step could send him tumbling into the void, but it was his chance. He waited for the creatures to move away slightly, then ran, sliding across sharp rocks, keeping low. Sparks flew from his boots as he moved, but the creatures only shifted slowly, not predicting his speed. He reached the crystal and grabbed it. Its energy hummed in his hands, warm and alive. He felt hope, but danger was not over. As he turned to retreat, a creature lunged from the shadows. Evan rolled, barely avoiding it, feeling the air shimmer where it passed. Another followed. His heart pounded. Humans had survived worse, but the creatures were clever, relentless. He used the rocks, hiding, dodging, and throwing small debris to distract them. His mind raced. One wrong move and the mission, and Leora, would fail. He remembered why he was here. Life mattered more than fear. Finally he reached the shuttle. The creatures followed, moving faster now, sensing the prize. Evan threw the mineral into the cargo bay and activated the shields. Sparks flew as one creature struck the hull. The shuttle shook violently, alarms blaring. Evan gritted his teeth and fired the engines, lifting off just as the creatures lunged again. The asteroid fell behind him, the creatures watching as the shuttle escaped. Humans survived because they never stopped trying. Evan had done what others could not. But the journey back was not easy. The shuttle had sustained damage from the landing, and minor systems were failing. Evan rerouted power, keeping life support and navigation running. He knew he could not stop, not yet. Every moment mattered. Leora's life depended on the mineral arriving intact, and the faster he got back, the better her chances. Humans had always pushed past limits, surviving storms, illness, and enemies. He would do the same. During the trip, Evan studied the mineral. It glowed softly, humming with energy. He could feel its power, strange and alive. He realized it could heal Leora if used correctly, neutralizing the infection quickly. His hands shook slightly with relief, but he forced himself to focus. Hope alone was not enough. Humans succeeded when hope was combined with action, and he had to act fast. Days passed in the shuttle, though the faster-than-light travel made time strange. Evan rested little, checking every system, making sure the mineral was safe. The creatures on the asteroid were gone, but he knew the universe was full of dangers humans could not always predict. Still, he felt a strange confidence. Humans were resourceful. They did not give up when the impossible appeared. He was human, and he had made the impossible happen. Finally, the colony came into view, glowing softly under its sun. Evan felt relief but also tension. Leora was still waiting, still fragile. The mineral's journey was only half complete. He prepared the shuttle, checking instruments, oxygen, and the medkit. The creatures had been defeated, but the real challenge remained, using the mineral to save a life that teetered on the edge. Humans had survived worse, and they had always acted when others would not. He would do the same now. As the shuttle descended, Evan whispered to himself, "Almost there, Leora. Almost there. Hold on. I've got you." The glow of the colony grew larger, welcoming and alien. He could feel hope rising, stronger than fear. Humans had a way of surviving, of pushing forward when everything seemed lost. And now, the life of a small girl depended on that human courage. He was ready. Evan's shuttle touched down softly on the colony's landing platform. His body ached from the journey, every joint stiff, every muscle tired. But he did not stop. He carried the mineral carefully, cradling it as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. Mara and the elders met him at the doors, their glowing eyes filled with hope and worry. Leora lay inside, her chest rising and falling weakly, her skin pale and dim. Time had not waited. Every second now counted. Evan knelt beside her, placing the mineral carefully on the small table near her bed. Its faint glow illuminated the room, casting soft shadows across Leora's small face. She opened her eyes slightly, and for a moment, Evan thought he saw recognition. He smiled, trying to hide the exhaustion and fear swirling in his mind. "I brought this for you," he said softly. "It will help you get better." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His glow pulsed slowly as he spoke through Mara's translator. "Human, the mineral can save her. But you must understand. The final step, it requires you to give part of yourself. Your life force. Without it, she will not survive." Evan froze. He had expected danger, but this was something different. Humans had always faced challenges, but giving life to save another was a choice few had truly known. He looked at Leora, weak and trembling. She could not speak clearly, but her eyes were full of trust, full of hope. The thought of leaving her to die was unbearable. Yet the cost was terrifying. Humans were brave, but not always willing to pay with their own life. Evan's mind raced. Could he do it? Could he give part of himself to save this small, fragile girl he had never met, in a world that was completely foreign? Mara's soft voice broke through his thoughts. She has no other chance. Only you can give her life. Only humans can do what we cannot. Please, decide quickly. Evan's hands tightened around the mineral. He remembered every step of the journey, the shuttle's jolts through storms, the creatures on the asteroid, the fear and hope that had guided him here. All of it had led to this moment. Humans survived because they acted when no one else would. He knew now what he must do. He activated the small device the elders had given him. The mineral began to glow brighter, and a soft hum filled the room. Evan placed his hands near it, feeling warmth, energy and life itself flow through the crystal. The elders instructed him to focus, to let a small part of his own life energy merge with the mineral. His vision blurred slightly as he concentrated. Humans had faced illness, injury and death before, but this was something deeper. Life was leaving him, slowly as he poured it into the mineral. Leora stirred slightly, a small sound escaping her lips. Her chest rose faster, her eyes opening wider. The glow of the mineral spread through her body, the faint shimmer returning to her skin. Evan felt a part of himself weakening, his energy fading. But he did not stop. Humans had always survived because they cared more for others than themselves. He could feel it, human courage, human compassion, pushing him forward, giving strength where his body wanted to fail. Minutes passed like hours. Sweat ran down Evan's face, his arms trembling, his chest aching. Yet he kept the flow steady, focusing on Leora, imagining her small smile, imagining her life continuing. The elders watched in silence, understanding the cost he was paying. Humans were strange to them, willing to give so much, risking what others would never dare. But Evan did not think of glory or fear. He only thought of the life before him. Finally, the glow of the mineral softened, the energy flowing into Leora complete. She breathed deeply, color returning to her cheeks. Her eyes opened fully, shining with life. She reached out weakly, grabbing Evan's hand. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling but alive. Evan smiled, exhausted, his knees weak. "Yes," he said softly. "You're alive. That's what matters." The elders stepped forward, their expressions a mix of awe and respect. "Human, you have given more than we could have imagined. Your courage, your sacrifice, it will be remembered." Evan nodded, feeling the truth of their words. Humans did things differently. They did not always fight for power or wealth. Sometimes they acted because life itself was sacred, because no being deserved to be left behind. Evan slumped back in the chair, feeling the toll of his choice. His body was weaker, his energy reduced, but his heart was full. He looked at Leora, now stable, breathing easily, her small hand gripping his. He realized something profound. Humans survived not just because they were strong, but because they cared, because they saw value where others saw only weakness or loss. This was a power no creature, no machine could match. Mara stepped closer, placing a hand gently on Evan's shoulder. "You have shown us what humans truly are. You risked yourself for a life that was not yours. You did what none of us could." Evan nodded, still breathing heavily. Words felt small compared to what had happened. He had given part of himself, and in return he had saved a life. He had shown what humans could do when they refused to turn away. Evan looked around the room. The colony, glowing softly outside, seemed different now. He had changed it. Not with weapons, not with machines, but with something humans had always carried. Courage, compassion, and the willingness to risk themselves for others. Leora's small smile, her return to life, was proof. Humans were not always the strongest, but they were different. They acted when others would not. They cared when others ignored. As he rested, weak but satisfied, Evan whispered softly, almost to himself, "Humans, we survive because we care. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything." Leora's eyes met his, full of trust and wonder. He knew the journey had cost him, but it had also shown the galaxy something it might never forget. That humanity, in its quiet way, could stand against impossible odds, not with weapons but with heart. Evan sat beside Leora's bed, exhausted but alert. The glow of the mineral had faded, but its effect remained, her breathing steady, her skin warm, and her eyes bright again. She looked at him with a soft smile, reaching out with her small hand. He held it gently, feeling her strength return little by little. The journey had taken much from him, but seeing life restored before his eyes made every moment of fear, every risk, worth it. Humans had always survived by caring, and now once again that truth shone. The elders gathered quietly around them, their expressions filled with respect and something like awe. They whispered to one another, observing the human who had given so much for a life not his own. Mara stood beside Evan, placing her hand briefly on his shoulder. "You did what none of us could," she said softly. "You showed us how humans act, even when the cost is great." Evan nodded, too tired for words. Humans did not act for recognition. They acted because life mattered. That simple truth had carried him across light years and through dangers most could not imagine. News of what he had done spread quickly through the colony. Creatures and citizens alike looked at Evan differently. Humans had been known in the galaxy as traders, explorers, and occasional warriors, but this was something new. They whispered of his courage, the way he had faced the asteroid, the creatures, and the cost of giving part of his life to save Leora. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to turn away when another life was at risk. Evan, weakened by the transfer of life force, did not complain. He had expected pain and fatigue, and both were there, heavy in his bones. But he also felt a quiet pride, the kind that did not need praise. Humans did not act for glory, they acted because they could. That simple principle, carried through generations, had made them different, had allowed them to survive challenges no other species had faced. It had allowed him to save a life against impossible odds. Leora looked up at him, her small hand still in his. "You really saved me?" she asked softly. Evan smiled, his voice hoarse from fatigue. "Yes," he said gently. "You're safe now. That's what matters." She smiled wider, the first full smile since the infection had begun. Humans survived by seeing hope where others saw despair, and in that small moment, that hope was alive, strong, and unbreakable. Over the next days, Evan stayed at the colony, helping where he could, resting when necessary. He observed the life of the alien colony, the plants, the rivers, the glowing structures, and the way the community worked together. Humans had always been observers and learners, able to adapt to strange worlds because they looked, listened, and understood. That ability had kept them alive across the galaxy. He thought of all the challenges he had faced, storms, creatures, uncertainty, and realized that humans survived because they combined courage with intelligence and compassion. The elders approached him again. "Human," one said, his voice soft but strong, "your actions will be remembered for generations here. You have shown us the power of life and the value of sacrifice. Humans, you are not like us. You see what is worth saving and you act. That is rare in the galaxy." Evan nodded quietly. Praise meant little to him, but understanding did. The elders had seen the truth, humans acted differently. They did not always seek power or fame. Sometimes they risked everything simply because it was the right thing to do. Leora's recovery continued each day. She played in the glowing fields, laughing, her energy returning. Evan watched her, feeling the strain of the life he had given slip from his mind in small moments of quiet joy. He realized that humans were strongest not when they fought or conquered, but when they nurtured, when they saved, when they acted for others without expectation. That quiet heroism was a force few recognized, but it shaped the galaxy in ways that words could not capture. Other aliens began to approach Evan, curious and respectful. Some asked how humans could do such things, how they could give their own life force for another. He answered simply, as humans always had, "We survive by caring. We act when others would not. We see value where others see only loss." The aliens listened, thoughtful. Humans had a quiet power, one not measured by weapons, fleets, or wealth. They had the ability to make life matter, to change outcomes with courage and compassion. When it was finally time for Evan to leave, he felt a mix of relief and sadness. The colony had become familiar, Leora a friend, and yet humans had a way of moving forward. Mara handed him a small device, a gift from the elders. "So you remember us," she said softly. Evan nodded. He knew that humans remembered not for recognition but for understanding. They remembered because life mattered and they acted when it counted. As he lifted off in the shuttle, leaving the glowing colony behind, Evan looked out at the stars. He thought of Leora, of the creatures on the asteroid, of every danger and challenge he had faced. Humans had survived worse, yet here he was, proof of what they could do. Life could be fragile, the cost could be high, but humans did not turn away. They acted. That quiet heroism was a gift, a force that rippled outward, unseen but powerful, changing the galaxy in ways few would ever know. Evan whispered softly, "Humans, we are small but we make a difference. Even in the darkest places we act." and sometimes, that is enough to save a life and maybe even more. The stars stretched endlessly before him and he felt hope, steady and bright. Humans survived not because they were invincible but because they cared, because they acted, and because they refused to give up on life itself.